Hello, welcome to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, a podcast helping people to understand their horses better, to provide solutions in a calm, connected way. I'm Jenny Barnes.
And I'm Mark Langley.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of our podcast with Mark Langley. I just wanted to start this morning, Mark, just by reading a couple of comments that have come through from our listeners. This is from Tanya. She said she just wants to say thank you so much, Mark, for your answer the other day on the Q&A. She's been watching the series with Coco and she's managed to lead her 2-year-old without him trying to barge over her or nip her. It's made a huge difference to him with being much more grounded, still work in progress, but so thrilled. And Rachel said that, hi Mark, she spent the last 5 years feeling like she hasn't made any improvements in her horse's feelings around people. She's immersed herself in another method and was able to have him relax pretty well, but that never really solved his anxiety when people were approaching or doing something with him. After 20 minutes of your approach and retreat method, he laid down to sleep for the first time. He normally sleeps sitting up. And now after session 2, the behaviours haven't disappeared, but she can definitely see an improvement. That's from Rachel. So it's lovely to hear your comments and keep them coming in. It's great to hear them, and it really does make Mark's day.
It's really great to be able to make a difference and, you know, affect people and horses in such a positive way. So it's sort of, I guess it keeps me excited about doing it and keeping on going.
So we're going to start this week, Mark, with a question from Anna, and it's a lovely question, and I think it will reflect on how you can sometimes see things that other people may not be seeing in horses. And it's to do with a horse that Anna has on leash at the moment. She's very sweet and obedient, but Anna is sensing that she could be also very shut down. Once she's caught, she seems to disassociate and resign herself to whatever her fate might be, whether that be riding or getting her feet trimmed. She's like a hollow shell, and her true feelings really only come out when it's time to be caught. So although Anna can catch her with some of her techniques that she's picked up along the way, it doesn't feel consensual or engaged. More of a process of resignation on her part, which Anna recognises is not a good place for their relationship to be at. Now, she's watched you catching a horse at a clinic earlier this year, but you were down the paddock and she couldn't quite hear what you were saying. But she'd really like to know a few tips on how she can move forward with this little horse and really start to build that relationship together.
I watched the little clip the video that you took of you catching your horse, Anna, and what I can say is I see quite a lot of positive in her. Like, you know, when I first read the question, I was like, oh, you know, I could imagine the catching process, but I was quite, you know, interested to see that when you were sort of walking towards her, she still was kind of bringing her thoughts towards you. And in the video, you were just doing some approach and retreat, you know, so as you approach, she'd sort of think towards you and then you'd sort of retreat a little bit. So where some horses, you know, by the sounds of what she's like, you know, and you might have already made some good progress there anyway, but, you know, they'll sort of block you out as you're catching them and they'll just kind of go into a really hard expression when you walk up to them. So it's positive there that she's actually engaging with you when you go and catch her. But the fact that they reside to the fact when you've put the holder on them basically means that, you know, those horses have had their, you know, the right to act on their thoughts taken off them. So they basically stop thinking. It's like an emotional hobble as soon as you put the holder on. So, you know, keep working, keep doing what you're doing with the approach and retreat, and listening to her a little bit more in the, you know, the approaching her in the paddock. But one thing I could say in the catching in, you know, just in the yards and being around her in the yards is, sometimes to get a horse to like, and I actually, in the approach and retreat that you were doing, I did notice she actually shifted a balance a little bit at one stage in that little video, which meant she, when you retreated, she loosened up and rebalanced herself, which was showing that even though she was looking towards you, there was still like a bit of an emotional freeze in her, because when you moved away, you'll see a rebalance her feet a little bit. And they're little things that we have to look for, you know, where, you know, because a horse will kind of go into that sort of hobbled state and they might be looking at us, but then as you walk away, sometimes when they have a lick in a chew or something, they'll also rebalance their feet, because that sort of little bit of a freeze goes through their body. something I'd look at when you're doing your approach and retreat and you're catching her is when you go away, just turn away and walk somewhere else and turn off her for a little while. Just do your own thing, and that'll really take the heat off them. Where you can do approach and retreat and you keep staring at your horse and you might be retreating with your bubble, but your gaze is still over them. So sometimes I to help those horses, I'll just kind of go away and then I'll come back again and go away and come back. And sometimes after a while they start to get a bit curious again because it's not normal. You haven't sort of focused on them and fixated on them in the catching, and they soften a little more and get a little more curious. And sometimes it brings a bit more of that natural horse out of them. And that time in the yards is, or in a bit of a paddock is really good. And I think, sometimes when we're working horses, we try and be so good at what we're doing that we focus too much and we're kind of looking at our horses all the time. Sometimes I would just kind of, switch off my horse, go and do something else, pick up a bit of manure, do whatever, just sit down on a mounting block, and then just go back and when she engages a little bit, might just go off and do something else. And that extra release, helps them come out and just be a horse again. And as I said, might bring more curiosity. But the residing to the fact and the learned helplessness that they get in education is always a hard one to fix. Because if you just train them the way they were trained, it was just, moving away from pressure, then basically they just stay in the same state. So the hardest thing is getting them to think again, because as soon as you, as I say, put a lead rope on them, all of a sudden they just go into that state. And you could spend all day long out in the paddock in your pajamas having good times with your horse. But sometimes as soon as you go in there with the idea to educate them, then they go back into that place that they remember. So that's where we really have to change our education. So basically, like the thing I try and sort of do is, like, for a little while in horses and for a lot of clinics for horses that have, say, been lunged and driven and stuff, and they just go into this sort of learned helplessness state, I might just go for a walk and lead them up and create energy by just going for a walk down the paddock, pulling on the lead rope till they kind of jog up a little and just be a little bit busy. When they pass me, I might go in a new direction. We'll sort of, and just stop, look at a few things, go and do something else, and just take the pressure off them, but still ask something of them so they actually get motivated in the lead. Then stop there and maybe turn around and put your hand out, and if they sniff on you, just stand quietly with them. That's just something that's just a good thing you can go and do, but you're still kind of getting the horse to do something and follow a feel a little stronger. But the real bit that you need to do to help these horses is get them to search again. And most horses like this that are in this kind of state, I will create a neutral anxiety, and I'll just sort of put it in different areas, and it'll worry them. But when I see them looking and searching and maybe going, oh, maybe I should walk over there, or what's over there, then I'll take the pressure off a little bit. And that's basically unlocking their mind to searching under pressure. And it's quite hard to explain in a sense of, the exactness of it. But basically, you're just looking for the horse to start searching and looking somewhere else and looking away from the pressure. And then you reward them for that. And after a while, they'll start to search again and start to breathe. And because basically because they're in this kind of slightly hyper-focused, shut out sort of state, they're not changing their thoughts enough. So when they're going away, they're not thinking away. They're just going, just going around. And so you've got to create an environment where they can, look to you, look away from you, and all those sorts of things. And that's really the key to fixing those horses up. Is so you're doing the listening part of it. You're listening to her. You're not just going up and chucking a holder on. You actually listen to her as you approach her in the paddock. That's all part of it. But the other part is getting them to search under pressure, and not just to move away from pressure or move away from the pressure of the legs. And then in the riding scenarios, you're going to sit on them a lot longer and not use your legs, and just get them to search under saddle. So I just pick up a rein till they move, pick up a rein till they move again. And eventually that little brain starts to work, and they start to look around, and they start to think about things, and they start to carry you. And basically once they start to go towards their thoughts, and they think left, they think right, then basically they're starting to unlock, and they become a horse again. and that's really the aim. But there's a few videos out there and there's one in How Long where I'm working a horse, and it'll be in the in the sections of helping horses that have been damaged with driving pressure and shut down horses. But there's a horse where I'm actually creating a little bit of anxiety with a flag and getting him to look away and search. And that's a really, he's a kind of a frozen horse, and that's probably the sort of the mental process that I'd like you to look at in getting her to unlock.
Okay, a lot in there. And Anna, there are a few videos, of course, that will be relevant to you that are on the membership. So I will put these on the Facebook group for you to go over. But there's in the section that's all about helping shut down horses, there's a few videos on Merlin and also Black Pony. If you watch those, they'll help you. And there's also a specific video on unlocking awareness and search. Have a look at those ones. And also, I think Mark was mentioning that the Rapunzel, there's a video on our Facebook page, which is open slather for everyone. So anyone who's not a member can check this one out too. And it's about Rapunzel. That will also help you and give you some ideas about, working with a shutdown horse.
So yeah, regarding the Rapunzel one, that's just a way a horse that blocks you out, and just using the flag to draw their attention, because that particular horse was blocking me out more on one eye. So yeah, getting them to, when you're approaching them, getting them to think towards you, if they have a habit of blocking you out, and this is opposed to using approach and retreat. So approach and retreat has been obviously working, getting her to think across a little, but this is to get the horses to, when you start to approach them a little bit faster, then they can suddenly just block out again. So this is a good way of getting them to sort of unlock under pressure and realise that they can think through pressure and soften and think towards us. It's just a little window into something, but it's worth watching.
Okay, Mark, your next question is from Nino, and it's a little bit more of a technical question. He's been working on challenge 2. So this is a challenge where you're trying to get your horse to understand a lot more to do with feel and also be comfortable with you in different positions. So what Nino's found is that the horse will come to the field but doesn't stop when the field stops. He just keeps coming to him. He's tried to use the flag to stop him, but not very successfully. What are your suggestions to get him to understand that no feel means no movement?
Yeah, basically, the best way is to put the question through the rope. Now, there's something I will be doing a bit more with the videos on the subscription, but for years of doing clinics, I saw a lot of horses destroyed with people sort of putting bumps and wriggles down ropes that really were just there to chastise the horse, and so I've been a bit wary of just putting videos out for people to use, but at clinics, I'll do things like, I'll put a feel down a rope to say, let that go, or to say that's the boundary, so the horse understands through the feel when they've sort of overstepped, so they know, so basically, if you had a blindfold on your horse, they'd still know, what the answer is. So obviously they follow the feel of the pole forward, the pressure when you pull it forward, but then when you release it, they just keep dribbling forward. And the idea is when that knot starts to hang, the horse knows that they shouldn't keep walking. That's usually the feel stops, the horse should stop. So there is a way, like you've tried with the flag, and I'll just say it to everyone else so they know what you mean, is you can pop the flag quickly so the horse gets that little, that's too far, and they'll just stop. But that's obviously using I guess, their ears and their eyes to make a bit of a distraction to say, let go of that forward, that forward thought coming into me. So though that works, and it'll still help you with that leading in skill. The other one you could do is when you're leading and the horse keeps walking, is you just send just one bump up the rope, or one or two up the rope to say, no further. So basically, there's a certain pressure, be like coming into a bit of a wave, and the horse goes, that's I can feel that there. I don't want to walk into that. So then they'll sort of settle down and stop. So basically, once if they do overstep, as soon as they do, you just send a couple of waves up that rope to say, no further. So the way you're kind of trying to make it feel like, if you get close to a fire, you get close and there's the heat gets to a certain point that you go, that's my comfortable spot. So basically the horse is just starting to feel that wave of pressure come through, and they probably give it a little bump on the nose, and it goes, oh, that's too much, and then they settle back and they stand there. But what I have to say to everybody, if you're going to start putting a bump in a rope and things like that, I see a lot of people that pick up a rope, put a bump in it, put a brace in a horse, and then leave it braced. If you're going to use bumping's to soften horses, not to brace them, and to understand it is really important. So, you're only doing it just to sort of say forward's not available, and just comfortably stand there. But that's probably the best and quickest way to do it, and the horse will understand that fine. But you never ever go at them, walking at them, just shaking their head off to make them run backwards. If you want to make them back up off a rope, it's a certain feel that does it, and you're using a wriggle to loosen a horse, not to brace a horse. So when you sort of advance later on, it's so important that you sort of do it for softness and clarity, not to just chastise and put brace in them.
Okay, and talking about brace, the next question comes from Jenny, and she would like to know about how she can reduce brace that's on one side of her horse. So she's been trying to get her horse Kip to float load and has had a few problems. So she said, she's going to go right back and just check everything is working okay. And she's found that although that he's been trying to put her on his left side, she's been working more on his right. And so she's been working on that. Now he doesn't want her on his left side at all. And as soon as he gets her on his left eye, his eye is very hard. He angles his head and he freezes. And she's been able to feel this anxiety in the lead. And she's been able to get in a position where she's just decided to stop asking everything. And she's just become really calm and like a tree. And he's obviously softened and sniffed out for her. So he's had a bit of a reset. And then when she asked him to come forward, she said that he just lifted his wither. He was really soft and there was no brace. But she's wondering now, where does she go from here now that she's realised that she's sort of got this difference with the different sides and this brace that's coming through?
It's funny when you work on one side, Jenny, and then you go the other side. You fix one side only to make the other side feel like it's broken. So yeah, he's always wanted to put you on the right eye. So you work on that, and then now he's putting you back on the left, won't put you on the, so it's a vice versa thing. Now here's an interesting thing to think about. Not that it's going to completely help you, but it's just interesting. But some horses are nervous with us on one side, and they kind of like, oh, I don't want you down my side. Oh, you're scary. And then you fix that. You spend a lot of time fixing that, and you try and get that so it works, that they can be on both sides and be. But then other horses that are a little disconnected, but they've got used to us down both sides. So sometimes they might tell us, I'm wary of you down that side and I don't want you down there, and you've worked on that, you fixed it. But sometimes some horses like placing us on one particular side so they can keep their strong eye available. So some horses that are slightly disconnected, they're not frightened of us on that eye. They just want that eye available. So they like to place us on the other side. So they can, some would be maybe escape, check out things, whatever, and it keeps them slightly empowered. That's just something to think about, why the imbalance can change. It goes from a imbalance to a, I want this eye available imbalance. And that's just, things that change as we're working them, and they get more confidence or they get less confidence, that it's always changing. But something I like to do, and I'd work as with Kip, is I'd do a cross eye thing, and that's what I do with a lot of wild horses and stuff that are really one-sided. Is basically I just walk backwards in a safe, not a rocky paddock obviously, because I'm going to be walking backwards, and you get the horse squared up, two eyes on. And then you just swap them to that eye and then to that eye, but they still haven't come past you. And you can be moving for this one because it's just a swapping eye lesson till they soften on one. So they haven't come past your shoulder or anything like that. They're still in front, but you're just pushing them across, and they still might be about, 2 meters, in front of you, and you push them across a little, and then you take them on that hand and push them to the other side, and you go left and right. And then you start to slow down a little bit in your feet, but you draw them past you a little bit on one eye. And then before they get to, if you see them soften a little bit, then you just push them back, or you step back a little and then you take them to the other eye, and you just keep swapping eyes and keep moving. And what will start to happen is, at the horse's feet, you're trying to get the horse to move at a certain speed and then maintain that speed. It'd just be a soft walk. You can chop and change your walk a little bit, as in you'll be walking a certain speed, and as the horse comes past you, you're slowing down a little bit till you nearly stop. The horse will get you on that eye, then you'll swap to the other eye, until what happens is you're standing still and the horse is just coming by softly on the left eye and the right eye. But you're doing a lot of eye swapping, 2 eyes on, 1 eye on, 2 eyes on, 1 eye on, and just keep crossing them over. And as I say, you don't pull them any further past your shoulder till they've softened. And it just builds flow until basically there's no resistance, and you could send the horse by on both sides without losing any flow. No freezes, no stops, no hardening of the eye, no squaring of the eye. No tight muzzle, none of that. Just nice soft flow, and that'll just help build him so he can sort of go out on either side and just get super comfortable. And also, movement is partly one of the biggest key to emotional softness, and bracing horses is fixing brace.
Okay, your next question, Mark, is from Melissa, and it's all about stomping in a float. If all else is well, so loading fine and coping with the float fine, stomping is just getting worse, potentially from impatience. Do you have any suggestions on how to stop it? This is from Melissa.
Okay, Melissa, it's a hard one, that stomping, because it does become a habit, just like chewing a bit when they're anxious. Obviously, it's derived from the horse wanting to be outside, and they get feedback. And this is a funny story. I think I might have said it another time, a while ago on a podcast, but when I was taking on horses for clients, when I was a fair few years ago now, someone said, my horse stomps in the float, and I said, it's getting too much feedback, just put a mattress in there. And so they went home and did it, and sure enough, the horse stopped stomping. So now that was just, I believe it was a fluke, but it was interesting because when the horse didn't get feedback, it stopped stomping. So I'm not saying that's the fix of it, because it's actually, that's just it, but it did work. So and it was like a non-invasive way to to do an experiment that's not going to hurt your horse. So that's something you can always try, so at least they're not making that hard drum noise and drumming the float. But it's not, it's like taking a Panadol. That's just like taking a Panadol for dehydration, headache. But I was quite chuffed when the person said, that really worked. That's a kind of like some guru or something. And it's like, anyway, but now I would have had a lot more detailed answer for that particular horse nowadays. But basically it is the horse being emotionally separated and anxious. So it's like a horse that paws the ground when it's tied up to a rail. Exactly the same, just about exactly the same thing. So basically, it's sort of small exposures in the float, and they might be loading softly, things like that. But you've got to get to a stage that you can self-load them, and they can go in softly, stand in there, and you can stand at the hip, and they're nice and comfortable with that. So after they've done all the soft loading and a lot of loose movement inside the float, when they're in the float, once you've done, like when people ask me about food in horse floats, what's the answer on food? Do you put food in? Not to encourage a hard horse to go in a horse float. I won't put food in there. But once a horse is soft and leading in, and I've got nice control over it, and its emotions are a little bit better, then I'll start to say, okay, well, you're allowed to eat some hay in here for a little bit, just to distract it a little bit from being in there on its own, going, I'm standing in here for a long time on my own, I've got to get out. Because there's only a certain sort of time limit a horse has before they start to look around and go, bang, 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 everybody's gone, and I've got to get out. So you can start to add a bit of food in there, let them eat some food, and then take them out. Okay, and just to sort of distract them off that banging. But as I say, distractions are just a sort of if you haven't got your horse comfortable enough at loading and soft, then you don't want to sort of those food things to become like a bribe to go in, but then the horse panics in there. So you have to have done your footwork and your education first. But if they can eat in there for a small amount of time, take them out, go and do something else, put them back in there, and increase the time that they go in there, until they're sort of standing in there more comfortable, knowing that you're going to take them out. So sometimes, you might go in before they have a chance to paw or anything, do like that. You take them out, do something else, put them back in, and increase the time, have a little bit of distraction in there that helps them feel good in there. And then that float might start to become a nicer place for them to be in. Obviously, it's not a nice place when you're going down an old potholey road, but they'll get to a point that, that they'll become more comfortable in there. Sometimes for horses that are really bad at traveling and they're okay with another horse, I do encourage, if you have got another horse to travel them with for the first so many goes, do it. But you just remember, you still got to get them to travel on their own. But too many bad experiences where they paw and they panic for a long time, it doesn't help them. You're better off trying to add up quite a few good transitions. I call it everything to me is more of a transition. So, if you have 10 bad trot transitions, what are you going to get one good one? You think you made any progress? You've got to look at the other way. You need 10 good trot transitions, and then one bad one out of 10 is not going to be too bad. But so it's the same with transitioning, in a float, going into a float. It's the horse survived that float experience without too much of a negative, traumatic experience. So, you've got to set it up that the horse can do lots of little float transitions, be in it, stand in it for a little while, come out and do that a little longer and longer until it stacks up, quite a lot of positive times in the float till that old habit starts to go away. There's all these old methods I wouldn't go near, which people will tell you, put spider hobbles on, hobble them so they can't paw. The problem is if you put a freeze or anything else in the horse and the horse does panic, then you're in a worse scenario. If anything goes wrong, you're better off treating the cause, which is the separation anxiety and basically the anxiety of the float. So yeah, graded exposure, I would call that.
Wonderful. And if you try the mattress, let us know what it does, Melissa. Mark, we're going to leave it there. We've kept your time for long enough. Thank you very much for all of your help.
Thank you. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, everyone.
You can learn more from Mark online through his online training videos. Just search Mark Langley Horsemanship. There's over 380 training videos which everyone has access to with a 7-day free trial. If you like what you see, it's just $15 a month from there. That's help where you need it.